WFM 91.7, 17 minutes past 9. This is the big question. It's a Friday, the 18th of June 2021. And on the big question this morning, we're talking supporting women with cancer. I have the founder for St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation, Moji Animasha. Thank you for joining us this morning, Moji.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
All right. It's a very interesting conversation I think we're having this morning. I think in the course of the week, last week, I had the opportunity of speaking with a cancer survivor. She had cervical cancer. She went through all of the treatment and she was able to, go through it and come out very strong. When we talk about supporting women with cancer, what are the basic things we need to understand?
Well, in supporting women in cancer, first you have to realize that supporting women in any form of healthcare is vital because we are the gel that holds any family, whether it's a nuclear family or an extended family, together. So supporting women's healthcare is essential. Supporting women in cancer care is very broad. It goes from us creating awareness, educating the people, ensuring that they get screened. Once they're educated, to know that they go for screening for two cancers that are, especially the two cancers that are most common among women in Nigeria, the breast and the cervix. And we just talked about somebody having cervical cancer coming on last week. And also the diagnosis, ensuring that it is prompt, and most essential, having cancer treatment centers where the women can go and receive treatment in a timely manner. It's not the actual cancer that causes people to be scared. It's the fact that management of it has to be prompt.
How early should women get screened for any form of cancer? How early?
It varies from place to place, from country to country, from disease to disease.
Okay.
So I'll concentrate on Nigeria. For cancer of the breast, we encourage women to, even as early as 18, 20 years old, because the normal age, I think, is about 30 abroad to start screening. But we encourage that a lot earlier here, because we're finding that many, even some teenagers, have breast cancer. So we're trying to encourage women from the age of 18 to start having the breast program done. But from even a younger age, to start doing the self-breast examination, which anybody who wants to grow the breast or can start to do that, examine the breast on a monthly basis and just understand your breast when it is normal. So if anything abnormal comes, you can quickly do something about it.
Yes, one of our radio doctors has spoken about cervical cancer being very prevalent and something that we should talk about a lot now in the country. You are the founder for St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation. What are your perspectives on cervical cancer treatment in Nigeria?
Yes, I totally agree with the fact that cervical cancer is something that needs to be looked at because it is we're getting about 14,000 or thereabouts people every year, and 10,000 people are dying from it. 10,000 women are dying from it. So we need to do something about it, and it's an almost curable cancer from getting the HPV vaccine, which helps to prevent it for younger people, through to ensuring that the older people get screened and have the cervical screening and at an early age and do it regularly every 2 to 3 years and understand their body that is bleeding, that is uncontrollable, to get to see the doctor on time. These are things that can ensure that cervical cancer becomes almost like a chronic disease rather than a death sentence, which is the other end of the spectrum. So it's been done in other parts of the world, and we certainly can do it here.
Amazing, beautiful. All right, this is the big question. 22 minutes past 9. We're talking this morning supporting women with cancer. Mojiani Marshall, founder for Central Cancer Treatment Foundation, is my guest on the radio this morning. Let's talk about the cancer treatment itself. I have an experience of an extended relative who the cancer wasn't treated properly. I don't know if I can call it out of ignorance of the people surrounding her, or the fact that a lot of people just felt like they could go the herbal way in taking care of this. What are your perspective on individuals who have such ideologies or insights?
It's rather unfortunate because when this happens, a lot of the times when they notice the symptoms, they go the way the other way of trying to resolve it, either with religion or through other herbal means. And there is nothing wrong with that. If you know that it is something that is efficient and you know that it has been tried and tested and it can work, there's some not alternatives but complementary herbal things that can work with cancer treatment. But unfortunately, they start with that rather than making it an add-on. So by the time they come to the oncologist, who is the doctor who looks after cancer patients, it's cancer that probably started off as a stage 1, which is the smallest size, may have become a stage 4, which means it's larger, it spreads to other parts of the body. So what we advise is that if you feel something is wrong with you, and we all know we do, when we know ourselves, we can know when something is wrong. The first thing you should do is go to a doctor. You can go to the primary, you even start from the primary health care, go to the primary health care, or go to the general hospital, or go to the tertiary institution. Just go to a physician. And if you want to go the herbal way, work with your physician. A lot of us, we are Nigerians, and we know that people want to, so that you can get advice. So they would have a lot of knowledge about it, so they would have answered questions and things like that. So work with your physician, but first go to your general physician. But if they say it is cancer, make sure that your treatment is carried out by an oncologist.
Okay. And
this is sure, because the oncologist is the doctor who is the professional, not the general practitioner. It's the oncologist who should manage the cancer patient. They now may send the cancer patient to the surgeon, they may send them to endocrinologists or to other specialists.
Yes.
But they are the ones specializing, so they can have an overview. And these things, I'm impressing them because they're vital in almost between life and death. If you get it wrong from the beginning, it is very hard to correct as they're going on. So it's important to realize that they're complementary medicines. They're not the be-all and end-all.
Thank you very much. The First Lady of Niger State, Dr. Aminu Bello, recently spoke about advocating for screening of cancer patients at primary healthcare centers to improve patients' outcome. I want to find out from you, what are your observations or your perspective towards the federal government and state government response to supporting and treating and ensuring that we screen women when it comes to cancer?
Actually, that's a really good initiative, and a props for the First Lady that she's doing really, really hard work in the cancer space. I have a lot of respect for her. Primary health care, like I said earlier, is the first way to come. They are the ones who see the people in their locality. They probably know them socially. They know the people in that environment. So it's a good place to start, and the people will be more inclined to come and get screened. So, and also it takes off because screening is really the most basic part of cancer care. It takes that burden off the larger institutions, the general hospitals, the tertiary institutions, where the actual diagnosis and treatment. So if one feels a lump in the breast, go to your primary health service and let them do a physical breast examination for you. Let them see whether they can feel what you feel or talk to you about it, and then they will send you to the next step up, maybe to general hospital to do a mammogram, and then so if we follow that path, A, you would have 50-year-old cases that they can call back on, and B, you would be able to get attention because they already know that you are in the system from the get-go. So the federal government is doing a lot of work now with the cancer treatment centers and the tertiary institutions. And something that we have advocated for a long time that we're very excited about seeing happening now is that working with the private sector in ensuring that there's continuity in these centers. So they're huge centers, they cost a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars. So the management and the ensuring that they're working is crucial. So aside from the money, if the patient starts with the therapy treatment and they don't complete it, it's worse than if they didn't start at all, because now you're giving them half a treatment that you can't take away, and then they can't, it's just useless, pretty much. So that is ensuring they're doing like PCPs now in the treatment there, and the state government as well is working with people. They got to support treatment, help indigent patients in treatment, and support the private centers as well, encouraging us to be able to come up and support the government, because the government cannot do it alone. It's becoming more and more working hand in hand with the government, which is good.
All right. Thank you very much. 29 minutes past 9 on the radio. This is The Big Question, supporting women with cancer. We're speaking with Moji Animasha on this morning. I want us to get very real with this, treatment for cancer now. I'm very much aware that cancer is no joke when it comes to the financial burden. Can you give us in detail how expensive it is to treat cancer? That's a very broad question in itself. It can be anything from as small as 100,000 naira to as big as 25 million naira, depending on so many factors. 25 million. Yes. Amazing. Yes. It's depending on how what stage it is, what treatment is needed, where the cancer is, the age of the patient. There's so many factors that are in there. And so the shorter end of the spectrum, the lesser financial outlay is when it's an early disease. So that's why we encourage people to screen and catch it early. Once it's caught early, the treatment is not as intense and does not require as much as when it has gone much further. So we always encourage people, for like the cervical cancer, the cancer of the cervix, for instance. We have something called the precancerous stage, which is, it hasn't become cancer yet, but it could become cancer. So if people do cervical screening, even if it's the DIA, which is just the local acetic acid test, it would show it, and then if the patient goes to have that, it becomes like a plaque, and they have that plaque split. That probably costs maybe 10,000 naira, and that reduces. I mean, the chances of that person having it become cancer is very, very slim. So that's 10,000 naira. But if the same person has not gone for screening, has that precancerous lesion, it becomes a cancerous lesion. It stays in the body. When she notices when it starts bleeding, that patient would have to have chemotherapy. Would have to have radiotherapy. Would have to have because there will be so many other complications that are involved that would cost so much more. So that's why we emphasize awareness
awareness screening is vital.
Let's look at the woman herself now, the woman in question who is most likely dealing with cancer. What are the ways in which we as individuals who surround these people can care for them? I recently, just yesterday, realized that there is something known as discrimination of persons with cancers. I did not know that until yesterday, because I felt like anybody with cancer should, you should.
What did you say you found out?
That there is something known, that there is discrimination of persons with cancer. Like, I didn't usually think of it that anybody would discriminate somebody that has cancer. I just used to think that, everybody would see them and, automatically feel for them and understand the pain that they are going through. I did not realize that some individuals might be insensitive. So how can we as individuals, because from what I read, it's a lot of work when you are taking care of somebody who is, surviving and trying to beat cancer. It might be a lot of pressure on the family, but how do we best care for persons with cancer?
Well, first and foremost, it's important that we be our neighbor's friend, whoever our neighbor is, and be concerned about them. And discrimination, especially at work, some organizations, they even let the person go because they feel that they are not being productive, because they're going for chemotherapy every 3 weeks and then they feel bad a few days after that. So a little bit of tolerance from the employers and support, and more organizations should support the employees in the cancer fight if they do have cancer. Maybe with a soft loan, a way of helping them out, so that they don't have the financial stress as well as the stress of the disease. This is one thing that we try to do at Central with our people who come to our clinic, in that ensuring that they help with the financial, just explaining to them or just even talking to them. It's not so much either, and not even give them the money, but showing them where they can get it, because they're already confused with this information is given them that they have a disease that everybody feels that, oh my gosh, I mean, you're walking dead once you have cancer, but it should not be so. Even people with late diseases in other parts of the world, with 4 diseases, they live for years and years. I have a friend who's going on 15 years now that she's had stage 4 cancer, and she's still doing so many things and living an active life, and this is just a true care. So the people in organizations should be more considerate of their staff, and think about it and have a plan for them. It's coming close to home. People at home should be considerate. Should be know that this person is going through something. It would affect psychologically. Obviously, it's going to affect the person. They may be cranky. They may just be irritable. They may not want to eat, and just being able to help together as a family. Now, you're not putting it on one person. You don't have one auntie or one cousin who's the only person helping. If you spread it out, then it's not too much, because it's a lot. There is not too much for one person to do. Okay, you take her to clinic today, I'll bring her some food tomorrow. So it should be like a joint effort with everybody, because we have to remember that, especially women, when we are down, a lot of things in the house is down, because we do things and people don't realize until when the person is removed from the system, and then it doesn't help. And if you can help there, you definitely can help with money, help them with it, whatever you can do. If it's advice, if it's finding out information online, it's just let it be a community effort for that person, because with the peace of mind for the patient, it helps the woman to heal faster, and for the drugs and the treatment to be more efficient. Because if the state of mind is depressed, it's almost like fighting against the drugs. That's why I don't advocate people going outside of Nigeria for the treatment. A lot of the times, maybe with one family member, because even just somebody passing by and coming and just stroking your arm and saying, or something like that, it means you're lost when you're going through something like this. So, yes, that's what I think we can do as a community.
All right. Please do well to stay with us, Moji. This is still the newspaper. This is still the big question on Women Radio WFM 91.7. Do well to be part of this conversation. If you have, we're talking this morning about, supporting women with cancer.
WFM 91.7.
Is something plenty? How do you say it on the street?
Well, Kilobade is plenty.
What if I add more to it? Let's say I add more and more.
Oh,
so let's say it's now pour like a river and call.
My sister, come on, berekete.
If I add more call, waiting past brekete.
Well, show you the one me. Nothing past globe berekete now.
Yes, sir. Nothing past globe berekete. We go give you 600 naira free airtime as you activate the new Glow SIM. Up to 100% bonus for every data plan where you buy, plus including 700% bonus on every recharge for new Glow customer them or the one where they glow before. Just go activate your new Glow SIM, recharge or buy data, make you begin the enjoy berekete. Hey, carry waka go any Glow authorized dealer to buy your new Glow SIM today.
Glow Unlimited.
Uncle Dentist, what are cavities and how does Colgate protect my teeth from cavities? Does it use Kung Fu?
No, dear. Most tooth pains are caused by tooth holes called cavities. When you brush daily with Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection, its expert formula locks natural calcium in our teeth and helps protect them from cavities.
It's time to upgrade to the world's most chosen toothpaste, Colgate, because Colgate locks calcium in.
Colgate is recommended by the Nigerian Dental Association.
When a woman's happy,
everybody's happy.
Welcome to the Happy Circle.
WFM. Cut the music.
91.7.
Still the big question on Women Radio WFM 91.7. It's 21 minutes to 10, and on the big question this morning we're talking supporting women with cancer, and I have over the telephone Moji Animashao, the founder for a Sensorial Cancer Treatment Foundation. Thank you for staying with us, Moji. Hello, Moji.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, thank you for staying with us. So now let's talk about the Sensorial Cancer Treatment Foundation. I want to find out what were the events that led you to, setting up this foundation.
I'm a radiation therapist, so I'm one of the professionals who actually treat cancer patients. So I've been in the cancer space for decades now, and I worked at trained in England because didn't have any treatment, any schools in Nigeria at that time for it. And I worked in England. When I came back to Nigeria, we had maybe 3 cancer centers then. I was here for 2 years. Then I went to the US for about 10 years, and I came back. And we still have the same situation, the same number of cancer centers. And out of 3 or 4, maybe 2 will be working. The appointment for patients was a month.
Yes.
So somebody with the early cancer would become a late cancer while they were waiting for treatment, and then the treatment was breaking down, and it took so long to be fixed because they had to go through the government procedure, which is it's their job, but it's not good in a system like that. So looking at all these things, of course I was like any other Nigerian, I was complaining about it, and then I would say divine intervention. I just thought, well, if you're going to complain about it, then you need to do something about it. And that's why I started a Cancer Treatment Foundation to start putting cancer treatment centers down, one building at a time, and one in different parts of Nigeria, to help so that A, people get quality care, and B, they get a holistic care in that they're not only looking at it, we're not only treating them, we're helping with counseling, we're helping with their finances, we're helping. So it's
amazing. This is amazing, and I'm so grateful that you came back here to start up this foundation. Let's look at finance as a non-profit organization. What is the finance like of the organization with regards to, because we have talked about it. You said from as little as 100,000 to as much as 25 million naira. So when it comes to ensuring that the company stays afloat and able to continually do the good work that they do, how do you source for finance?
We depend heavily on donors. Most of the work that we do, we have outreach. We go through crowdfunding. We have individuals donate to us. So we depend on donors. We also write for grants.
Okay.
And when we're successful, that also helps to push us a little bit forward. And then we have something in Centurion. We have an initiative. It's called Centurion Initiative for Patient Support. Our SIP program is an account that we have dedicated that people can put money in, that it helps to keep it there for patients who need money for treatment. It's not every patient who walks through our door who can afford it. We have a self-sustaining, our clinic is self-sustaining in that we charge so that we can keep our doors open, we can pay for our staff, and we can and make sure that the clinic is there for when people need it. So this system helps us, whether it's somebody who wants to, they're expecting some money and the money hasn't come, so we will provide the money to the pharmacy to get their drugs so that they can get it back when it comes, and it doesn't delay their treatment another 3-4 weeks. Or is it somebody who can't pay at all, and we help them part of the money, we show them the rest of the day. Just somebody knowing that they can actually just come and register. They don't have cover, but they can come and register, and they don't have to worry about that and see an oncologist. If just that alone will take a lot of burden of that person and encourage them to actually start the journey. Because some of them, they think, I don't even have money to register. How can I start? But it gives them hope. It gives people so we take our finances, we use our finances in those ways. But the way that we get the money for the state is anybody can put money into that account, and that's what I encourage other people to. When you're well and you're working, we should be grateful. We should be grateful to God because they're the gift of God. Go any of us, anybody else can. So if you have the opportunity to be able to help with ensuring that something like this is there for people, you never know who would need it in the future. And it's pennies the dollar. We're not asking people to put millions of naira at a time. Even if you just devote, okay, I'm going to give you 5,000 a month, or I'm going to give 2,000 a month, or I'm going to give, every month, and it builds up. So by the time that person who needs it comes, there is money in the account for us to give to you, and that's the part that breaks my heart when they come, and I know that they don't have any other alternative, and we don't have any other alternative, and we can't help them. We can see them, we can do the registration and see the doctor, but we can't buy the drugs because we don't have enough. So that's how we get our funding, and we work with them.
All right, beautiful. I wanted you to talk to us about, I don't know if it's a partnership or a collaboration now, with the African Women's Health Project International, and also of the Bracy Therapy Unit at the Surulere Cancer Treatment Center.
Yes, that's exciting news.
Yes.
I'm so grateful for us to get this far. It's been a long road, but this is the beginning of another long road for us. It's the Bracy Therapy Initiative. Now, we're talking about cervical cancer, women with cancer of the cervix, and trying to focus on it in Nigeria. Actually, worldwide, WHO is focusing on it, that by 2030, we want to ensure that maybe only 4 women out of 1,000 will be dying from cervical cancer. It's a huge task, but it's something that we can work towards attaining. And so one of the ways, brachytherapy, which is a form of radiation therapy, but it's internal. You actually insert the radiation into the patient's cervix as opposed to external, which is the bigger machines. So it's used a lot. The brachytherapy equipment is used a lot for women with cervix. It's vital equipment for the fight against cancer of the cervix. So we're very excited to be having this partnership with AWHCI, the founder, Princess Moadio Ogunlana, is an awesome advocate for women's health, not just in Nigeria but worldwide. She works in I think virtually every continent with women. That's really good work. So we've partnered with them in getting a brachytherapy unit into our center in Chile, where we have chemotherapy units already set up.
Okay.
Chemotherapy, and so we want to add this new equipment to it that will help many thousands of women who have cervical cancer. We don't have one in Lagos yet. At this very moment, there isn't one in Lagos, there's one in Ibadan, and there's one in Gombe. And that's all we have in Nigeria. So we should have Lagos should have at least maybe 10 of them for a start. Yes, but we don't have any. So we're very excited, and we're looking at, like I said, grants. In this case also we're looking at investors who want to invest in healthcare. It's something that's going to be it's a viable investment, investing in particularly in Nigeria, and in long term returns on it is high. So that's our new initiative, and we're kicking it off with the groundbreaking event on Tuesday. And we're very excited, yes, because we hope to have the governor and the representative there, and it's a big deal for us.
Yeah, it is a big deal, not just for you, but I think for the whole of Nigeria too, at large, and for women in particular too. So it's a big win. I know it's a win for you, but this is a good news for us all.
Yes, yes. I can't keep the excitement out of my voice.
That is beautiful.
I know. I think it's the beginning. There's going to be other collaborations, and I have to mention this, that Nigeria, we're actually awesome. The NGOs in Nigeria, we work together a lot, especially in the cancer space. We share knowledge, we share expertise, we support each other. So I know that this initiative will, once people see that it is possible, it will encourage others to be able to work together. We're a long way from competition. That's what I always say. According to, we should have at least, like I said, 200 or 250. When we have 200 or 250 centers in Nigeria, then we can now start to say that we're competing with each other, or we're hiding information from each other. But right now, we need to work together. So I'm hoping that collaborations like this will come and we can continue to take them.
I'm hoping that there are more collaborations like this that would see uplifting women, and also see the need to help ease the pain. Women go through a lot, and with this kind of initiative, with this kind of partnership, I think this is a very beautiful one. And I'm just saying more and more success to come. I think I have just about 2 more questions just before I let you go this morning. You work in a very sensitive field in the healthcare industry. I know, yes, this is a job, it's also a profession, but as an individual, how do you protect your mental space, from, seeing the women go through all of this trauma, the pain, the chemotherapy, and, the chances of some of them having, developing different stages of cancer, and, maybe eventually, getting to know that this person might not necessarily live long?
That's a tough one, but that's part of the training. The day that you don't feel sympathy, the day that you don't feel that emotion for the patient, that's really the day that you should quit doing what you're doing. And that's what I would say as a radiation therapist. You have to have that empathy for the patient. The thing is that you have to channel it into positive thinking in ensuring that this person in front of me, yes, they have cancer, but I'm going to do my personal best to ensure that what treatment I'm giving is proper, is accurate. I'm going to support them in the way, and I'm going to help their mental well-being and ensure that you give the best. As long as you continue to give your best, it is easier for you as a therapist. I'm now speaking as a radiation therapist or anybody in the medical in the cancer space. And I'm saying that's what keeps us going. You have to have that sympathy for the patient, and it pushes you forward to give the best to that patient, to come in on Saturday if they need you to come in, to answer that emergency call if the patient has a brain bleed or something like that, to ensure that you give your best all through your career. You feel, when you do feel the patient, because inevitably you feel sympathy for all the patients, but there will be some. And for me, it's the children. A couple of times when I've actually broken down and had to step out and leave the room, have been with children. But it doesn't happen often because you're so busy wanting to help that person that you almost put your sympathy at bay. And then it's quite interesting. Again, I'll call it divine intervention, but a lot of us don't have mental stress issues or depression, or you don't usually see it because we're able. I think it's because we're able to channel how we feel into doing something. So that distracts from the burden of the emotion.
Thank you. My final question is: what is the big dream with the foundation, with St. Cyril Cancer Foundation? What is the big dream?
Well, this initiative, like I said, it's $1 million initiative. It's a lot. It seems like a lot, but then it is not a lot either. If people look at it in the way that how many people it's going to help, and how much it's going to give to our country, and how much of those people that are helping are giving back to the country. And again, the big dream for me is that we start with, it starts growing, we build another one in another geopolitical part of Nigeria, and another one until we build in at least all the states and keep on moving like that. So that is our big dream. But for this one, we want to just ensure that we get off the ground, we get as much support as we can from the government, from individuals, from investors. Just listen to us and let us show you that it is a viable project. It's going to be run as a business, and then we're just going to ensure that the patients more patients get treated.
Okay.
That's the big to the table and more holistically.
All right. I want to say thank you so much for speaking with us this morning, and most importantly, congratulations on this amazing partnership, and more success to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, thank you very much. Do well to enjoy the rest of your day. All right. It's a wrap on the big question this morning. We have spoken a lot this morning on supporting women with cancer, and Mujiani Marshall Fana for St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation had been my guest. I'm sure you're going to find out a lot more about the St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation. You can just check out their website, stcyrilfoundation.org. That's their website, stcyrilfoundation.org, or www.awh awhpi.org, awhpi.org, and you can get to see all of this. The groundbreaking launch for this amazing partnership is going to be happening on the 22nd of June 2021 at 10:30 a.m. There's going to be an in-person and also an online Zoom. So just do well to find out all of this information right on their website. My name is Daniel Adaja, and at 10 o'clock is Radio Doctor. Good morning.
To sponsor this program, call the number 0816-480-7613.
But don't you find that when you talk about find out the remedy, they learn from where we get. Because to find it easy for me. I wonder that is what we say easy way for me. Now linking my NIN to my Glow Life. Don't tell me, bro. I feel just pick up my phone. Go use the USSD code by dialing *109* my NIN hash. Weekly, I go just text my NIN to 109. I think also visit glowworld.com/NIN on top my super fast internet. If I come the area where we say Glow World near me, I just walk enter. And if you don't forget your NIN, dial *346# you don't get them back. Some people there, they call the ask question. We don't call register for NIN. Don't worry yourself. Just walk enter any nearest Glow World. No let them disconnect you from all the amazing voice and data offers where they inside Glow. Linking your NIN, that's it. And it's 100% free with zero wahala.
Glow, Grandmasters of Data.
What are the consequences of corruption on the woman? Silence. Silence through diverse forms. Education, healthcare, laws and policies fostering unfavorable conditions to the woman at all levels. The Woman Agenda, breaking that silence, demanding accountability, transparency and good governance. The Woman Agenda is deliberate and calculative in amplifying the voice of women. The Woman Agenda, Fridays, 2 p.m. on Women Radio 91.7, a platform on the way forward.
Taking me higher. Now since I don't know, say no be by my papa. I'm making a headway. I'm selling my person my way. I'm different.